You're listening to The Dating Den with dating and relationship badass and best-selling author Marni Batista. Every week, you'll get the raw truth from top experts and real people on the important dating, sex, and relationship issues you want to know about. So if you're ready for true talk that's authentic and unfiltered, and you're not afraid to be called out on your stuff, then you're ready for what's next.
The Dating Den with Chris Gillis. How to know when you should get back with your ex. Let's do it, he says. Ladies, welcome into the Dating Den. Let's do it. Does a guy say to you, hey, let's do it? We are here to identify what we can learn from a reality TV show, Bachelor in Paradise. So many topics that apply to real life dating situations. So the number one thing I want to talk about is, can a relationship be rekindled? You break up, you've been dating someone for a while, you feel like you finally got over it. And then I always say, Chris, they always come back. And in this show, we have adorable grocery store Joe. He was engaged. He broke up with his fiance like a year ago. He comes back. He finally starts to like someone. Enter the ex-girlfriend, the ex-fiance. And I really want to talk about, like, you know, can you get back with your ex? What do you need to do to know that, you know, it's appropriate to start over? What are the flags? And you should just be like, no, we broke up for a reason. So what do you think about that whole situation?
First of all, yes. I actually thought you were going to talk about when you said, yeah, can it be rekindled? I thought you were going to say, but you're very much right with the grocery store Joe thing. I think we're going to talk about situation with Mari and Kenny. How
that's also true. Yeah.
So it applies. It's a very, very great topic. And what are my thoughts on getting back with exes? I love you said it can be rekindled if, and this is for guys. I'm curious what your take is. If I as a guy I know and guys I have known who have got second shots, they generally if the girl's like, oh, you know, kind of does the Mari thing or you know, like, oh, I want to, you know, I'm just not sure yet, and kind of walks away. It seems to work really well with dudes when we don't freak out. When we do leave honorably and say, you know, okay, you're free to go and don't chase. When we don't chase, it's like when we do chase and when we're holding on to their ankles, they're trying to get away. That's usually it's a very bad look and doesn't work out. So I don't know. What is your experience?
I think number one is that, you know, if it's not a match, I always say, like, you know, rejection is God's protection, all those kinds of things. And so, if someone is saying that you are not a match, or you're dating someone and you are unable to resolve the 69% of the perpetual problems that you keep having over and over again, and you never make any traction, and you can't manage through conflict, and you break up for a reason, and this is really interesting because in the example of Joe and Kendall, they say, you know, we love each other, like we had a love for each other, but there were other things, other values that we had, or other goals and dreams that we had that didn't match up. And I think this is a really important thing, is that love is necessary, but it's not sufficient. It's not enough. And we've talked about this on the show before about how, like, you know, oh, we love each other, we'll get through it. And that's not enough. So these two people happen to break up over logistics. He is a guy who wants to live in the Midwest. He's not an LA guy. His job is there. His friends is there. His family are in Chicago. He wants to be able to live in Chicago. I have no idea if they discussed that prior to even getting engaged. I don't think she said maybe she was open to it, but then when it really happened, she didn't see herself doing it. And she wasn't willing to compromise or give it a try. And what Joe says is, like, you know, look, if you're not even willing to try, then this is an unsolvable problem.
Yeah,
right?
Yes, that's spot on. That's huge. Yeah, I live in different areas. But what I found interesting with when getting back with, if you are trying to rekindle and bring it back together, I thought it was very telling that they still couldn't agree. One, she didn't want to talk about it. And that was like, well, okay, like why it didn't work the first time. So when she didn't want to,
She was like, I don't want to talk about logistics. And you're like, well,
like
but
right
that's
now,
why you broke up.
exactly. We just have fun. Let's just hook up and go back to getting horizontal again and do all the fun stuff. She didn't want to. Yeah, exactly. She didn't want to fast forward again to where they're eventually going to be. But I also thought it was really telling how she and him, they were clear. They were like agreeing to disagree on why they broke up. I don't think at the very least we need to be on the same page so you can come up with some sort of resolution for the problem.
Yes, right. So number one is if you're going to talk about getting back with your ex, you have to agree that the problem that you had that was in the way is the same problem so that you can actually come up with a strategy to fix it. So they couldn't agree on that, or maybe they did agree on logistics was the problem, but Kendall doesn't want to talk about that. I think what's interesting too is in that conversation, and I think from a guy's point of view, I want to hear your take, but what I saw is Joe comes in, he's like, oh God, I forgot how hot she was. Oh yeah, I'm looking in her eyes and like I remember that I really loved her and okay, now we're having a conversation about the problem and all of a sudden they go back to like 2 years ago probably and the fights that they had and she's still not willing to be open and she won't talk about it and all I could see in Joe's face was like, yeah, this is why we broke up and this is why I can't do this again. And so if you can't deal with, if you're not willing to talk about the reasons why you broke up, if you keep going back, if you loop back and you're like, oh God, this is the pickup of the same conversation we had 2 years ago, don't do it. Don't do it because it's not going to magically go away with lust or chemistry or nostalgia for good times had. So I think Joe did the right thing of just having the conversation and then he remembered, I don't think so. So I would be sad if they tried to get back together without solving that problem.
He a couple things. He was able to, because she started doing that kind of like reminiscing and she go, hey, butthead or whatever. Bringing them back to, a couple of years ago and, being that fun, flirty, all those fun memories that they had. And it is worth honoring how comfortable I guess, especially when we're feeling times of alone or scared and how comfortable how easy it is to forget about all the bad stuff, the bad times, the hard times of why we actually broke up with a person. And she was doing a really good job. Again, she was like, let's not talk about the problems. Let's talk about, how much fun we had and all those sort of things. And it wasn't until, thank goodness, he didn't be like, just start cuddling up and start making out, which, do when we're drunk and lonely and our ex's number is still there and old reliable, what's going to go on. He didn't do that. So kudos to him on that. Also, I thought it was so fucked up how it's one thing if if you're like, yeah, hey, Marni, like what's the town in Iowa you were
Cedar Rapids, baby.
Cedar Rapids. It'd be one thing if you're trying to go to try to grab Jeremy and say, Jeremy, we're moving to Cedar Rapids and if it's like you literally you explained how incredibly important that was to you, and that's all what you wanted, and you wouldn't even, and if he wouldn't even like listen to you and honor, and I think that was fucked up. Like she wouldn't even take a trip there for like a weekend to see what it was like, and she refused. Like no, because I know she's like I know what we were going to do. You're going to try to sell me on it and why it's going to be a good time, and she wouldn't even entertain just to have a discussion for it. It was very much, and that's not a relationship. It was very much. No, I'm only going to do the way I want to do, because there's no, there's no possibility I'm going to move, which I guess that's our non-negotiable, and that's his non-negotiable.
Right.
I think the non-negotiable, is for me is always, and this is one of my big things is I'm a trier. I always want people to because I will try almost anything for when I'm in love with a person if I know it's very, very, very important to them. So I know that I don't know anything and I could be shocked. Heck, I'm going back to Kansas tomorrow with Emily. I'm not going to live there, but just to be there, like, I had no idea. I love Kansas. I think it's rad. But before that, there would have been, never would have been that. But to not even to entertain an idea and hold a different thought in your hand for a little while because it's important to somebody, just to show them, hey, I love you enough. I'll give it just a sample. Ugh, that's such a red flag.
It really is. It is. And then, someone makes you feel wrong for it. And by the way, if you don't follow the show, you might be wondering, well, did Joe try to live where Kendall wants to live in Los Angeles? And the answer is yes. He even was on like Dancing with the Stars, and he tried to live in LA, and I think it just wasn't his vibe. So
really,
yeah. So he was here for a while. So now look at Kenny and Mari. So what happened there is, and that's another sort of variety of the same thing, is they're dating for, let's just say, maybe a week or 2 or 3. She says, hey, I'm not ready to be exclusive, but I'd like to date other people. And he's like, oh, okay, then I guess we'll date other people. I sort of thought this was going in the exclusive route. He dates other people. She's like, oh, shit, let's get back together. And I think that can happen, right? Like, I think that's what happens is, in the process of dating other people, sometimes you realize who you really like. And so I talked about this on another episode, but all Mari had to do was just say, hey, I know we're not exclusive yet. I just want to let you know, like, I'm not ready to be exclusive, and it would be great to stay open, but you're my favorite. You're my front runner. And, the slower I go, the faster I get there, blah, blah, blah. And it would have naturally evolved. He might have slept with someone. He might have gone like Demi. He might have gone on another first date, Tia, right? And then you keep going like, wow, well, this is the person that I like the best. So we talked about this before, but if you want to stay cautiously optimistic and not rush to exclusivity. And if someone does say right, if someone says, hey, I want to be exclusive, and you've been dating 3 weeks, like, I just gave you the script of what to say. And actually, I remember when Jeremy and I were first dating, we went on a couple dates, and then we went to that guitar party at your house. And then we went for tea after at the Casa Hotel, whatever it is. And he literally was like, in the UK, we don't date other people. We just sort of like, it's working, and we are, I don't really want to see other people. What about you? And I was like, whoa, we've like only been dating 3 weeks. And I basically said, like, I really like you, and it's really fun. I'm just like not ready to like commit or be exclusive yet, but I want to keep getting to know you. And then, like 1 or 2 weeks later, I was like, yeah, no, this is my guy. So you can like, quote unquote, get back together.
My grandma used to like bust my ass too. She was from like 1929, and she's like, Christopher, what is up with the way you guys date now? You get in, you're like children who get into these mini marriages. You don't know jack about jack. And she's like, in my day, you didn't. First of all, and heard it. Yeah, you didn't. At least allegedly, you didn't sleep with anybody on there. As quick as commonplace now. And she's like, no, you dated. You went on. You got a malt. A chocolate malt from with one person and some tea with the other person, and you walked in the park, and you chatted, and you didn't like be all crazy, and everyone's eating each other's butthole out and doing all sorts of freaky stuff that they do now super quickly, and you take your time, but you date. But you didn't declare exclusivity, and then have your like heart broken and be all freaked out. I think there is something to be said about that. And I think that is, I know, kind of champion Kenny, but he does seem to be cool in that, even though he does have feelings, he doesn't seem to be just totally, being like disaster Demi, just like hooking up and then feeling all sad and crying and wailing against the wall when people, dang, let's
talk about that too, because this is a really important nuance. So we talked last week about how, if a guy is dating people and he's looking for a serious relation, and somebody comes along who's like, hey, I'll sleep with you, he could be a quality guy and sleep with her. He's still a quality guy. Someone said, hey, I'll walk into your little cave. And he's like, cool. Now, what's interesting is what I don't want our listeners to do is to make that mean something, right? So if you decide you're going to have sex with someone and you haven't talked about what does this mean or expectations or whatever, don't make an assumption, right? So what happens is, and we know Demi, and you guys, I know a lot of you have this. I used to have it, whereas like my value is around being sexy or sexual or being cool, right? Like I'll have sex with you. It's cool. No strings attached. And so what happens is after Kenny he talks to Mari again about the possibility of continuing to date. He goes on another date with Tia, and Demi's like all sorts of like upset because they slept together, and she tries to use her old move of like seducing him because she thinks that's the way to win the guy. He's over it. He had it. It's not worth it. Doesn't want it anymore. Now he's actually got 2 women that he's dating, that he's looking for something serious. And so that is the really big thing. If you're going to make a decision to sleep with someone, you need to communicate the expectations around that directly, or assume that it means nothing, and that you're just doing it because it's fun, and he doesn't kind of owe you anything. And we keep talking about this, but don't lead with sex. You're so much more than that. Your worthiness is so much more than that. And a quality guy, he might have sex with you once because it's fun and it's easy, but that's not the way to a guy's heart. So being cool, being promiscuous, quality guys, like it's the flash goes away really quick and then you're not interested, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they just because he'll go in your cave doesn't mean he wants to buy the whole mountain.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
which yeah, they definitely had different perspectives. So, and then for those who saw the show, the Demi chick just gets all bent out of shape, and then she's a victim. So she went from being this badass girl, and I guess it's probably easy to like, oh, I'm so cool, I'm so rad, I'm just all to all guys like me because I'm just like, them, no strings attached. It's just, exercising naked.
I'm a dude.
Yeah, I'm a dude too. Look, what's up? Yeah, let's bump uglies. And then as soon as, they didn't get what he wants, she's like, I'm the hurt little girl. How dare you use me? Oh,
yeah, that just
you use
because
me
she's trying to always to victimize, to be the victim. And that is fucking not attractive, people. Okay.
No.
So we talked about how and when to get back with your guy. So let's talk about when anxiety gets the best of you, when you really like a guy. And I think we see this a lot, Well, let's talk about the example of Marissa and Riley. So Marissa, and again, ladies might relate to this. Marissa kind of has a guard up. She tells the audience, like, I've never really even been on a real date.
Mm-hmm.
Like she's attractive, but she's never been on a date. She's hanging out with somebody. It's like it's going slowly, right? The guy really likes her. I think she was dating a guy, Ivan, right?
And no. Marissa she's the one who has sex straight out the.
With Riley, but but the first week in Paradise, she was just like casually hanging out with.
Wait, what's that? Yeah,
I think it was Ivan. I'm not sure, but it was like like we're dating, we're getting to know each other. They're putting in time. It's back and forth. A hot guy comes in. Riley, they go on one date, her first date apparently. You know what? It wasn't. It was Connor. It was Cat Guy. Exactly. So she's dating Connor. He's cute. He's fine. He's super, super nice. Apparently, the character of Connor is nice. He's a nice guy. And what happens? She goes for like the edgy, sexy, goes out on her very first date ever. And they talk about sex and it's like very hot. She starts dating him. And then what happens? Riley, who is her new guy, Connor goes away. He's out. He's interested in other people. And what happens, Chris? So they slept together on the first date.
Yep.
And what happens?
Inseparable since then, and just all over each other. And you could tell. Yeah, I think what was interesting is that Connor liked her. He was dating. He did seem to be. I was proud of him. He did seem to be dating with a little, bit with more dignity. Meaning that, which really exposes that, is how he reacted, or more importantly, didn't react and freak out when Riley came in there. And Riley, I think she just felt so. This is another thing to chat about. I think she was overblown and just over. She felt so incredibly special to be chosen by Riley. And Riley was like, he was just so cocksure. He's just so, when he says something, he's so resolute about it. And I think she felt so beautiful and so special and loved finally and seen. And so she's just all in. And, Riley's letting her know, how special he is. Maybe they're also together. Maybe they are married. Who knows? They end up having sex really quick on the first night they met. Yeah. And then fast forward to the most recent episode. And then Riley gets plucked out to go on this disco little party thing with all these other people. And she finds out there's 4 new girls there and she loses her shit. She's so insecure. Her mind starts running places. She goes to the sand, falls to her knees. She's like bawling and imagining, all these things that he could be doing. And it's just, I think we've all been there, maybe not on the sand crying, but when it's because she likes him so incredibly bad and she's just so afraid. And she's just leaking everywhere, as you like to say, of insecurities, and her brain's going like short circuiting.
Well, and that's what's really interesting too, is that so when you sleep with someone on the first date, right? Most women get really intimately connected, and because she hasn't dated a lot, she's sort of like, this guy picked me. Okay, I'm in. I'm his girlfriend. And they never had a conversation about exclusivity. And because she doesn't feel worthy really in that whole way, the minute he is interested in other people or going out, her not enoughness comes up. And it's unfortunate because then that insecurity isn't attractive, right? And if you're gonna have a bout of insecurity, which we all do, you have to be able to learn, and this is what we do with our clients, you have to learn how to understand that a lot of that is, number one, you're not comfortable in your wholeness, your worthiness. Number two is that wounding parts of you get triggered, which can happen, and you don't know how to self-soothe it. You don't know how to make a discernment. Is this true, or is this a story based on past wounding? And then 3 is if you don't know how to manage your emotions, right? And if you need to articulate them, you don't know how to articulate it. And sometimes, by the way, ladies, you don't need to articulate anything. You go, oh God, this is totally me. I'm having a reaction. I'm going to work on that behind the scenes. And then when he comes back, I'll show up as my adult self. So I just want you to know that we all have anxiety when the stakes are high. It's how do we manage those feelings? How do we work through them? How do we articulate it or choose not to articulate because we don't want to show up like that wounded part?
And isn't the cosmic irony of it all that we act like the worst versions of ourselves and are most anxious when we're most excited about getting what we really want? That's when we tend to fall apart. And it's like, well, it was a person we're just like, casually, oh yeah, I don't really think too much, that about the person. Then we can be calm, be ourselves. But it's like, that's when we fall on our own faces and self-sabotage, all that. So what is some solid advice for the people, for the girls, the listeners, the women out there who do get down that suck hole of self-doubt, insecurity, not enoughness, and they feel like they're starting to lose it, or maybe they're about to shoot off 20 crazy random texts, the kind of like 3 words here and hit enter, 3 words here, and go crazy because maybe he hasn't texted you back quick enough, or maybe he seems like he blew you off, or you think he's out with somebody or with an old friend, or you don't know who this girl is on his Instagram story. What can you do? So we don't.
Well, I think number 1, which is really important, is that you need to remember that, and this is a high level concept, but you want to be able to have what we call healthy rationalization. So healthy rationalization or healthy coping is you feel your feelings about it. And you also I'm simplifying it in a beginner way, you look on the bright side. So you might say oh, I'm really sad. I really like this guy. I didn't realize how much I like this guy. I'm really sad. And also, if he's meant to be with me, then it's really good that he's dating other people, because when he does choose me, it'll be really solid, right? Mm-hmm. Unhealthy rationalization is Demi, right? It's fine. I'm really fun, right? Like, of course he's going to like me. I'll just come back. I'll make a better plan. Like, I'll just seduce him when he comes back. And that, right? So there's not an acknowledging of what's really happening and the feeling. So I think that's number one. And then number two is really asking yourself, when you think of that feeling of rejection or abandonment or whatever, to ask yourself some high quality questions, right? Is this feeling like a time from my past, whether it's your childhood or your first marriage or another relationship you had or whatever it is, where you felt abandoned, unworthy, unloved, left, not important, all those stories that our inner critic makes up. And then to be able to separate it and say, wow, this is not my adult self. This is just a repeat pattern from the past. And then make sure that you figure out how you can soothe that part of yourself by acknowledging the fact that it hurts and it's painful. And that's really, in a nutshell, what I want ladies to do is to not brush it off the side and be like, well, fuck him, his loss, I don't need this shit, or that's why I don't date. Or we take Love Island Faye, who's so guarded, who's like, well, that, men are assholes and why bother? And that's why you don't let your guard down. No, you just say, wow, I'm hurting and and you find the bright side. And then the advanced move is you ask yourself, so what am I learning from this? And what adjustments do I want to make to the way I'm dating?
I love it. You generally, because I've watched, starting to get into this, enough reality TV show, and I've seen the ladies give other ladies some of the, like, when they're heated and hurt, some like the worst advice ever.
Yes.
And I'm always like, what in that? It's like literally the opposite. Usually it's like you do literally the opposite of what you say, because the girl's just trying to tell you, I don't just want to stop the tears, to plug them up or whatever in the quickest way possible. Do you generally encourage the gals that you work with to learn how to self-soothe, or do you ask them? Because I know guys, especially like when we have men we trust, we really, a lot of us are better at helping each other out. Call up a bro who's like, hold on, hey Eddie, hold on, bro, and then we're able to talk each other through it oftentimes. But do you literally think that that ladies usually figure out how to do it on their own, or should they reach out to a friend? And if so, how do they know that friend's qualified?
Oh my God. The worst thing to do is to ask a friend.
Is it?
Yes. Oh my God.
Don't phone a friend. Huh?
Don't phone a friend. Look, there's a lot of reasons. Like we've even had trainings where we talked about when you get into your single girl crew, at an unconscious level, sometimes they don't want you to be happy because they want you to be single. I was just talking about this last night with Reality Reina, because when she was dating her boyfriend at the very beginning, like early days, her roommate had been in a relationship for like 2 years and had just broken up with her boyfriend. And when Reina was like, I might like this guy, she was like, no, you want to be single. Like, no, whatever. And so whenever Reina would say, oh, I really like him, or I'm not sure, she was like, maybe he isn't my person. I'm confused. Her friend would be like, yeah, like he's not your person, right? And because she was jealous, she didn't want to, she wanted her to be single with her and like good times, right? Like I finally broke. So just be sure that when you ask your people that they don't have an unconscious reason why they want you to stay single. Even I've had clients who are older and like, they're the aunt, right? And they're the one who takes care of mom because the siblings have relationships and kids. I've had the aunties who are like, my sister loves it that I'm always available to take care of the kids when me and my husband go out of town, right? And so they're a vested interest in things staying the same and you being single. And so that's number one. Number two, they don't know what the hell they're doing. I go in our free Facebook group and I for the podcast for all our listeners, and it's an amazing group. And when I hear anyone giving advice, I run in there and I'm like, excuse me, I think that if you were qualified to give advice, you wouldn't be in a Facebook group for single people who need help with dating. So, the blind leading the blind, so to speak.
Yeah.
And then number 3 is, and this is huge. Do you have a story or shame or some sort of thing that you shouldn't need help, that you should be able to do stuff on your own? And where's that coming from? And how's that working for you, as Dr. Phil would say? So I would say get advice from somebody who is a trained expert. Do not rely on your friends. You're going to get shitty advice.
Especially I even if they're like really wise, I think so few of us actually have the friends who can turn off that self-interest button, saying whatever it will keep the friendship in the way they want. But also, like you said, there's so few of us, like they're not going to know all the know you as well as you are, and our inner, like you said, the things we struggle with, and how often are we actually truly transparent about that, even with our best guy friends. I'm just thinking of, Jeremy right now. And I bet you, Jeremy and I probably know more than any other Jeremy's friends. And I bet you I know the tip of the iceberg on who he really is and what keeps it, and vice versa. And I'm extremely open. I'm overly open. I share too much. And yet he barely understands the tip of that. So yes, it is bullshit. You're right too. Yeah. To expect some person to be able to, truly be able to help yourself as much as, and understand what it is that we need, where our weak points are, and why we do some of the self-sabotage and things we do. Because it's hard enough being honest with ourselves, let alone your friends.
Yeah. Well, totally. And then some people don't want to say anything bad or good, right, about a person, because what if you end up staying with that person, right? Or right. And so
or so awkward.
Yeah, you're just like, So,
I thought you said you were going to break up with them. Oh, no.
Yeah. And then you're sitting across from them at freaking Christmas dinner. So, yeah. So don't take advice from a friend. Get professional help. Okay.
Or a free Facebook thing.
Yeah, or come into our group. Yeah. And also, last thing is, we often want advice, but really what we want is someone to tell us what to do.
Yes.
And we're not listening to ourselves, and we're not honoring what's true for us. And there's context, and there's so many things that you mentioned earlier. And so it really takes courage to say, let me take personal responsibility for this, and let me start asking myself the questions that I need to ask to get that clarity. And sometimes you need another person to help you ask those questions. And tell you the truth and invite you to look at the truth for you. So that's another big piece is I know we just want it to be easy and people to tell us what to do, but in the end, that's harder than being honest with yourself.
It's funny in line, more evidence to show that I think we're on the right path here. I was talking to my therapist, and she's got many girlfriends, and her girlfriends, they'll be having cocktails or whatever. And then they start asking about information, or about they start plucking around for advice, and they want her PhD advice, and she stops them right there. She's like, absolutely not. We're not going to talk. It's got to really suck too, because being so I'm sure she wants to give it and she has it or whatnot, but you just can't digest the fucking facts from your girlfriend from your girlfriend and not be emotional about it versus versus yourself, who doesn't have a vested interest to gain, and it's so easy, to blow up at them and disagree with them. And then, like I said, worse off, you do end up marrying that schmuck that they told you not to. It's super awkward for them though. But she always has to stop them, say, nope, we're not going there. You're not paying me to show that you don't truly want to hear what I want to say. You just want me to tell you, that, what, screw him. Let's go have, guys are all assholes. You're perfect. He's a dog. Let's party. No. And then as soon as people start, I guess that's how where people are at, they really do want advice, because if they start getting pissed off and you're sharing it, then maybe they're.
Well, really that's the other thing. I think a lot of our ladies, have that's the other thing why it's important to get help too, is because if you're repeating the same patterns over and over again, and then I've had ladies that I talk to on the phone tell me like, I'm like embarrassed to even talk to my friends about it anymore because they're sick of hearing my shit. So yeah, just get help. Okay. Last thing before we wrap it up, and come to our Facebook group for sure. Our last little note is, if you are going to address this thing about what do you do when you're interested in a guy, if your friend is dating them or your friend is interested in them too, should you ask them like permission? Do you need to ask them for permission?
Sure.
What
Yeah,
do you think?
that's common right now, right? Especially with everybody on the apps, right? And it being so casual. Let's get a coffee or and then let's do this and that. And so many people. There are people out there, who have different options, and you're like, well, and if that person's not in a committed, if your friend, for example, if they're dating them, seeing casually, exploring, seeing how it's going, but if you think you do have a connection, how in the hell do you handle that? Yeah.
Well, on the show, it wasn't handled very well, right? Because a woman is like, hey, I'm interested in this guy you're dating, and they're not exclusive. And so she kind of had to say it's okay.
Yeah. Do you have to say? I think you have to say it's okay. Because like you said, you want to have that, that wholeness, meaning that you want, your man to go off and not just be stuck with you because you're the only option on the island. So you want to make sure that he chooses you, not just that you're the only one musical chair left in the game. So
right.
Sitting on you. So yeah, I guess you do want to do that. But on the show, what happened is with Tammy and Becca. Yeah, is that she acted so nonplussed and was like, that's fine. Do what you got to do, girl. Kind of empowering her. It's like, we'll still be good friends when you come back. And that didn't happen. And who knows? If I don't know about that did happen, but then Tammy, as soon as Becca walks away, she also starts. There was a lot of crying. Why does this always happen to me? Blah, blah, blah. Yes, yeah, and I'm never gonna find love. It's so funny that people are so savage, and then the one thing doesn't go right. Why am I here? Oh Lord, me.
Well, yeah, because they have so much catabolic victim energy of like they take one thing and they go global. Like something happens, they're like, why does this always happen to me? Always and never. Don't use those in your vocabulary. But I think the thing is this: you have to be honest with yourself. And if you're really in a place where you're like, I've only gone on like 2 dates or 3 dates with this guy. If he wants to go out with you, I am going to just not be attached. I'm going to trust the process, and I'm going to trust that, that's right. Especially if it's not your best friend or whatever it is. I mean, then you need to have that conversation. And then it's why you want to, when you're dating, until you have an exclusivity conversation, which doesn't happen right away, it's so important to remember, like, you're dating. The process of dating is getting to know each other and how you handle conflict, and you're trying to find your right person, and you don't own that person. We get in trouble when we form attachments, unhealthy attachments, right? To things that if we are with this person or this person like us, we're attached to it going our way because it validates our lovability or our worthiness. Right. And if you're going to say, you can date Thomas, because if he likes you and not me, that just means we're not a match. And if you ask me, it doesn't mean that you are better than me. It means that we're both here trying to date and meet our person. I'm not going to take it personally. That's that adult part of you showing up. And we just know on this show that we don't. Well, number one, most of them are barely adults chronologically, but I see a lot of women of all ages emotionally acting like the parts of them that were hurt when they were very young. And that's just never going to work. So have a conversation with your guy.
I totally, I think we can make this apply to almost everybody. I think it also applies to how do you handle asking your girlfriend if you could, go on a date with her ex. because that's also a person that we know, and also those same rules apply. That same need, that same honesty, that same I'm not going to be a victim and wanting if you're being honest with where you're at with that person versus who knows, we may guys call it calling dibs on a girl. So some guys are like, dude, you could never. Dudes do this all the time. We're like, bro, I dated her. Like, dude, you dated her 5 years ago and it didn't work out. And you're dating somebody else, and guys are still like, no. That's my, that's my piece of meat. That's my property. And I called dibs forever. Like, wait, what? But also conversations need to be had on that. So, Marni, during your illustrious dating career, have you ever had a situation where you and a friend were either dating, or they had dated somebody, or maybe they had dated and broken up, and then you were interested, or vice versa? One of your friends wanted to date somebody, and did the Marni at that level in your life handle it okay?
Well, I never really had anybody do that. I think that when I was single and there was one guy and there were more than one people, including me, that was interested, my friends and I would be like, who's going for it? Right? Yeah. Like, we would just decide, and so I never had that happen. I've got. What
about exes? What about? Did you ever have an interest or go on a date or want to go on it with one of your friends' exes? Because you spent some time with him. You're like, wow, this seems like a good dude.
Never.
And that person, your friend was dating. Really?
No, never. And I never had anyone I know wanted to go with my ex-husband. I'd be like, sure, go for it. Yeah, right.
Huh. I'm surprised to hear that. No, I did once, and just hooked up with a friend's ex-girlfriend after they had been, done dating like 5 years later or 7 years later, and I didn't ask. And I don't think he ever forgave me, and it sucks because he was a pretty good friend as well, and I feel shitty about it, and I wish I would have had the maturity and the caring and the kindness to talk to him first, because it did hurt him more than I wish. It did. I would take it back immediately if I could. So these are important conversations to have.
All right, we covered a lot on this episode. So much good dating basics here. Chris Gillis, I'm so excited. Next week, we're going to be watching in person. We'll be back on our live show schedule, watching together. Ladies, whatever you do, we'll join that free Facebook group, of course. Tell your friends about this podcast, The Dating Den, and do it with some damn dignity. We will see you next week. Bye-bye.
Hey, thanks for tuning into today's show. So if being in an intimate relationship in which you feel 100% seen, heard, and accepted by a high caliber man is a priority for you right now, and you're interested in seeing if you're a fit for working with me and my team at Dating with Dignity, here's what I want you to do. Just head over to DWD VIP, that's D as in dating, W, D as in dating, VIP.com, and book a call to speak with my team. We'll get on the phone with you for about 60 minutes, and you'll get crystal clear on what's stopping you from finding true love right now. We'll also take a look at what you want to create, what you want your whole life to look like when you're able to finally be fully expressed as a woman in a healthy relationship with an incredible guy. And if we can help you get from where you are right now to where you want to be, we will show you the fastest path possible that makes sense for you to do that. We help smart, successful women all over the world solve this one missing piece in their life so they can finally have it all. So to see if we can help you do the same thing, head over to DWDVIP.com. I'm Marni Batista, and let's talk soon.